Hey everybody, with the mobile release recently coming out, I decided to do a video on what I think is one of the best beginner builds, the light crossbow. Now just quickly before we get into the build itself, if you're a beginner, I recently released a short video series intended for beginners to entail how you can go from a fresh account to getting your premium completely free to play, so if you're interested in that and getting your premium money, be sure to check it out, the link is in the description. Okay, so for our build we're going to be going for a light crossbow build because it's very easy to play and it's very good at lots of different activities. In this video I'm going to be going over the build and showing 3 activities that it's very good in: dungeon clearing, solo PvP, and small group PvP. Moving on to the specifics for your weapon, obviously we're going to have light crossbow, which really unlocks all its potential at level 6 in the crossbow mastery. At level 3 crossbow fighter, you'll be able to unlock the Q ability explosive bolt, which is what you're going to be using for most of the activities. And at level 6 crossbow fighter, you'll learn the well prepared passive, which you will use in combination with that new Q, allowing you to get an extra explosive bolt in every 4 abilities that you cast. For the abilities on your light crossbow, you want to go with the second Q, the explosive bolt, and the well-prepared passive like we were just talking about. However, your W changes depending on which activities you're doing. For clearing dungeons, like solo dungeons, you want to go caltrops on the W to help you get your well-prepared passive up in combination with your Q more often. For solo PvP, you want to go noise eraser on your W, although you can also go knockback shot or sunder shot in specific matchups, especially against things like melees and tanks. And then for group PvP, you're pretty much always going to be using Sunder Shot. Moving on to the offhand slot, we're going to go with the Mistcaller as a nice cheap option that gets you a nice cooldown reduction, and essentially just increasing your DPS even more. There are some more expensive options like the Crypt Candle and the Taproot, but those are more expensive, so only go with those if you have the money to buy them. Moving onto the helmet slot, we're going to be using the Scholar Cowl. The Scholar Cowl has the ability Energy Shield, which will let you regain energy or mana every time you get hit when it's active. Really, this helmet slot is just to make sure you don't run out of mana while you're clearing dungeons or doing PvP. Occasionally, you can also use the second ability, Force Field, when you're in PvP. Jumping down to the boots now, we're going to be using Assassin shoes. These are a really good generic general shoe that's very cheap that can be used for almost all activities. For the abilities on your Assassin shoes, while doing dungeons you want to go with Refreshing Sprint. When doing PvP you want to be going with Dodge Roll. Sometimes in PvP, especially if things have a lot of mobility, you can switch to Normal Run or Refreshing Sprint as well. For the cape, we're going to be going with the Thetford Cape as just a super standard damage increasing option. The Thetford Cape essentially just gives you a lightning attack every 15 seconds on your next auto attack. Moving now onto the Chestpiece, here we have some options depending on what activity you want to focus on. If you're someone that likes clearing dungeons or doing a lot of PvM activities, you're going to want to go for the Druid Robe. The Druid Robe will essentially just give you really high damage over time, as it's just a really strong offensive ability. On the other hand, if you're someone who likes to PvP and do it solo, you're going to want to go with the Cleric Robe, as it gives you a really strong both defensive buff, making you immune, and buffs your damage, making it really good in 1v1s and 1v2s. Lastly, if you're someone who wants to PvP but also play with friends doing group PvP activities, you want to go with a Mage Robe, as it can help your team as well with the purge that it has on that Chestpiece ability. Now don't worry too much about this choice, as all of these options can work for all different sorts of activities. These are just specific ones that are the absolute best options for their specific activities. Lastly, for our food and potions, all depend on the activity you are doing. So if you're doing solo dungeons, you're going to want to have regeneration food like Janglemouth Catfish, as well as poison potions. If you're doing group dungeons with friends, on the other hand, and you have a healer, you don't need the catfish and you can switch it out for something like beef stew. For both solo and group PvP, you also want to be using beef stews, although for your potions, usually you want to be running resistance potions. Okay, now that we know the build, I thought I'd just end with some tips and tricks so that you can become a light crossbow master in no time. One of the most important things about getting big value out of the light crossbow is being really smart around your well-prepared passive. Try to always use your Q as your 4th ability and then right again as your 1st ability, as you'll be able to get 2 Qs off right away. So try to keep an eye on your passive counter at the top left underneath your health bar so you can see when it gets to 3 stacks, and then try to hit your Q twice to get most value out of your Q and passive combo. A second tip is that when you're doing PvP, especially solo PvP, you're a lot more effective when you're running away than you are when you're chasing. So if you have the opportunity, try to kite your enemies and force them to walk into your queues as you're walking away from them. For my last tip, I'm going to go over the basic combo that you want to do, especially in group PvP, to really burst down one target. So first you want to make sure you have one stack on your well prepared passive so you can just throw out a Q. Next you want to sunder shot an enemy and then instantly put your E on them. Q once, which will reset your Q again so you can Q twice, and then auto attack them proccing your Thetford Cape, and then by that time your Q might be back up again and you can do an absurd amount of damage to a single target. Okay, that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If this helped you find your first build in Albion, leave a like, and if you want more content like this, make sure to subscribe.